Good afternoon and good morning, everybody, anybody who's listening in and wherever you are. Welcome to the first of our future mobility webinars, which we will run over the next couple of weeks while everybody has the joy of being locked up inside. My name is Alan O'Mahony. I'm a market advisor for Enterprise Ireland, based out of Dubai, and I'm delighted to be joined today by our co-hosts Ahmed from the Clean Energy Business Council, Keith from Telecom, and Seham from Renault Middle East. So thank you for your attendance today, and I hope that you'll be able to gain some new insights and some fresh perspectives from the session. So obviously, these are difficult times that we're living in at the moment. The COVID-19 pandemic has plunged the world into an unprecedented situation. The global spread of the coronavirus is impacting our societies, economies, and personal lives. Every continent and every business sector has been affected, and although it's too early to calculate the damage, we can already say that the fleet and mobility industry is being hit especially hard. The various lockdowns put in place to combat the COVID-19 pandemic have effectively shut down an integral part of mobility, and that's moving people and goods from A to B. Global airline traffic has collapsed by up to 90% compared to the same period last year. Ridership on public transport systems in Europe and North America has plunged more than 80%, and automotive production globally has ground to a halt. So just in terms of a quick introduction from myself, this is the running order for today. After me, we'll hand over to Ahmed Samir Elbehissy. I hope I haven't made a mess of your surname, Ahmed. Ahmed will give a brief overview of the Future Mobility Club here. I'm proud to say that Enterprise Ireland and the Clean Energy Business Council are now partners, and we look forward to collaborating further over the coming months. We'll then hear from Keith Kiely. Keith has put together a fantastic report giving us an outlook on the current situation for the mobility smart transportation sector right across the GCC. So Keith's going to run through his key takeaways, and then finally we'll hear from Seham from Renault Middle East, who will give an overview of the digital and kind of connectivity solutions which Renault are looking at the moment. We will try to answer a couple of questions towards the end depending on time, so please feel free to use the toolbox on your right hand side. You are able to answer questions there, and if there are any that we can't answer during the session, I'll be sure to follow up with everybody individually after that. For anybody who's on the webinar today who doesn't know about Enterprise Ireland, we are the trade and innovation arm of the Irish government. We help Irish companies to grow their exports, to find local partners, and essentially to help them increase their international sales. We invest a huge amount of money into startups, into SMEs, and also some of our larger companies as well, many of whom are working on new and emerging technologies, specifically around the automotive industry and how it's transforming to a new digital age. So some of the main areas of expertise that we have developed over the last few years are around mobility as a service, IoT, and of course 5G, which help us enable all these things. So with that, I'd like to hand over to our first presenter, Ahmed from the Clean Energy Business Council, who will give us a quick overview of the Future Mobility Club. Ahmed.
Thanks, Alan. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to our first webinar of the Future Mobility webinar series. So I'll give you a very quick presentation about the Clean Energy Business Council and the Future Mobility Club. So Future Mobility, the Clean Energy Business Council, it's a non-profit organization incorporated at Masdar City in Abu Dhabi, and we claim to be the permanent organization representing the private sector and the clean energy industry in the MENA region. CEBC goal is to establish a dialogue between the public and private sectors and to drive the development of the needed regulations and policies to support the clean energy sector in this region. So what CEBC does? As I mentioned, we are the key organization representing the private sector and the clean energy industry. We work on behalf of our members to promote the clean energy and renewable energy technologies through partnerships with either government sectors or semi-government stakeholders. We also do events and open opportunities for collaborations between members and other stakeholders. We develop and present policy papers in partnership with our members. And we also provide advocacy and thought leadership in the clean energy sector. Throughout the year, CEBC, we host workshops, events, webinars like this one. We also publish reports, case studies, white papers, and market surveys, one of which we are doing on the future of mobility in the region and will be launched very soon. CEBC runs a range of working groups, one of which is the Future Mobility Club. Another one is focusing on energy efficiency, and the third one is focusing mainly on climate finance. We also have two special programs running on schools and another one on women in clean energy. So as of today, we have over 120 members. And as you can see from this screen, it's very diverse, covers very different topics under clean energy. And we cover the whole MENA region, as I mentioned. We also work with partners through which we give more access to our members and we bring more value. We also do some joint activities like reports and events with them. So CEBC, we have, this is our work stream. We have, as I mentioned, 3 working groups, one of which is the Future Mobility Club, which I'll talk about very briefly right now. So Future Mobility Club was started 1.5 years ago, and the main goal of FMC is to support the transition of the automotive industry in the UAE first, and then we'll scale it up to the MENA region towards more green and smart mobility sector. As of today, we have over 26 members of the Future Mobility Club, and we cover all the different from insurance of the vehicles and the charging stations to charging station suppliers to EV manufacturers, even oil and gas, and some mapping and smart vehicles companies as well. We have 2 subgroups under Future Mobility Club. One is focusing on the infrastructure and regulations, and mainly we have 4 different goals for this one. Is to support the development of the regulations in the UAE and the MENA region, to increase the market reach and potential incentives to the EV manufacturers to come and launch their products in the UAE and GCC region. Work on supporting the build-up of the required infrastructure for electric vehicles, and also work on creating multiple service providers for insurance services for owners of the different EV models, and create incentives and finance packages from the local banks for EV, for electric vehicles. And the main focus here is basically business to business, and we're starting with the UAE market. The second working group is market awareness, and this mainly to raise awareness either on the enterprise level or the customer or on the user level. So for the Future Mobility Club, as I mentioned, we have over 25 or 26 members. We have two subgroups, and we have regular monthly meetings where the members come together and they share information, they share updates, news. We organize joint events between the members as well, sometimes joint case studies, reports, depends on the timing and the topic. So we do different activities under the Future Mobility Club. We have been organizing meetings with the different stakeholders and policymakers to make sure that we address the challenges of the members. We do networking events, but right now this moved to all be webinars. We have the FMC annual market survey, where we study the future of mobility in the region and know what are where are the opportunities and what are the challenges. We also organize some test drive events for the end user so they can try the different EV models that are currently in the market. These are pictures from some of our past events throughout last year and early this year. And we are looking forward to having you in one of these events once this COVID-19 crisis is over. Thank you so much for joining. This is my email and this is our website, Clean Energy Business Council. If you have any questions, you can send me an email or just visit the website. Back to you, Alan. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Ahmed, for giving us a great overview there of the Future Mobility Club and, of course, the Clean Energy Business Council, which is doing fantastic work here in the UAE, and hopefully will continue that progress throughout the rest of the region in months to come. So we look forward to working with you over the coming weeks and months. So next up, we have Keith Kiely. Keith will be familiar to a lot of Enterprise Ireland clients. They would have met him in the past. Keith has been working quite closely with us on a consultancy basis to help us map the mobility industry across the GCC, and also to identify opportunities for Irish companies to try and win new business in the market out here. So Keith has put together a fantastic report on the mobility outlook for the GCC. Can I just reiterate to anybody who would like a digital copy of the report, please email me after the webinar and I'd be happy to share it with you also. So Keith, if you want to crack away.
Sure, Alan, thanks. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here to support Alan on this first and hopefully many of webinars to discuss mobility of the future. Also, just like to thank the rest of the presenters. So a couple of the topics that we will discuss and we will look at in the webinar today is the current modelling of urban mobility and how that is changing for connected and autonomous transport. We then will move into the automation, which is a key factor, and the new face of transport technology. Hyperloop has been a touch point and how it is defining cities of the smart cities of the future and more on-demand transport. And then a very key factor for the transport mobility of the future is the connectivity. So we'll look at 5G, we'll look at IoT, we'll look at some of the vehicle to infrastructure and vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to anything really. And then we look at some of the current running projects that are basically in place across the GCC, right across transport and infrastructure projects that help support this the modelling of urban mobility. So we were looking more in depth in the UAE based on, I suppose, more detail and more of the key players and mapping of projects that are currently in place. And then we look across the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we look at Kuwait, Oman and Bahrain. And then to finish off, what we'll do is we'll have, what fundamentally will change a lot of the outlook and a lot of the I suppose, foresight of what we've been doing and how it's going to change. So I'll move on to one of the key factors of future mobility is, it's the very center of urbanization and enablement. And, in the GCC today, the planners really are kind of at the forefront of defining smart cities and really they're the visionaries of what public mobility, innovation, and what really the how we're going to move, in cities of the future. But there's some key areas within that model that they're focusing on, and that's automation. Ride sharing is a key factor within this model. There's trip planning tools and technology to help support that, and also the environmental considerations, which we look at the very end of how this may change fundamentally. There's a lot of key innovation planning, as I say, happening in the region. Expo 2020 is a highlight, and it is a showcase. And unfortunately, with the COVID-19 situation, the Expo 2020 basically showcase is postponed until next year, but it's still, the project is still running. There's still work on site, so this is another key factor, is that things are still in progress. All things haven't come to a complete halt. So automation is one of the key aspects of the technology to do this, and some of the key benefits in looking at the report is integrating autonomous vehicles into our transportation networks. That entails both at in airports, that's it, across the train lines, it's across all commuter belts that we basically see today. And you know, the key benefits that is shining throughout the GCC is that it's going to have increased lane and line capacity. There's going to be greater transport accessibility and cheaper mobility in the future. Reduced travel times to and from place of work, which is in today's life is fundamentally changed. The lower carbon emissions, again, we'll talk further in detail in the report about that. Fewer accidents and incidents really on the main transport highways, and supporting economic sustainability. Again, there is some key strategies in the GCC, but what I've highlighted is the one in the UAE, the Dubai Autonomous Transport Strategy, has the aim and the ambition to convert 25% of the mobility journeys in the Emirates by 2030. So it is an ambitious timeline, and it basically, this may be accelerated with a lot of the conditions we're kind of now seeing. So I suppose the report has also brought to light a number of the technology changes and the technology aspects of what mobility looks like in the future. And autonomous pods has been around the UAE for quite a while. It still has a presence, and there's a lot of investment going into the next future transportation model. Abu Dhabi's Masdar City is a future mobility showcase that is moving along with new designs, new technology, new versions, new models of how these autonomous pods will look like. Aerial taxis are something of a future look as well, but I've had recent discussions with high decision makers in the RTA, and it's something that may change in their strategy of the future. They are now looking more at maybe the safety driver systems that are coming into play, and they're looking at the semi-autonomous models that are coming rather than the aerial taxis. It's not as one of the key focuses at the minute. Driverless cars, again, we're looking at a lot of that in relation to the new advancements of Tesla. We're looking at GM in relation to the driver safety, BMW, and I'm sure we're going to hear later on from Renault on this. But these are being tested and they're being trialed right across the GCC, and we have visibility of that definitely in the UAE. We've got with both Tesla, Uber and Careem, Google, and again, this is in line with the transport strategy. And again, with these strategies, there's the economic aspect of it. So there's an annual, they're hoping to save 6 billion in annual economic revenue and reduce operation costs. These are all the key benefits of moving to this mobility and moving to future models. Tesla are a key factor here, in not alone in the GCC, but in the global mobility of the future also. And when we talk about connectivity, I think it's a key takeout on how connectivity is going to influence a lot in relation to the car manufacturing industry and the OEMs. Again, some key projects that are undertaken are in Abu Dhabi, in the Integrated Transport Center. And also then there's, as I say, I've highlighted a lot of some of these key projects that I've seen, we've come across in data over the last year and 2 years, and future projects. So maglev technology is another one that's included in there. Just on the basis of time, I'm kind of skipping through these, but as I say, Alan will send the report out. So again, talking about the future, Hyperloop definitely has to be a consideration, and maybe with the changes in our environment and changes in how we're living today, the investment may be pushed. There is a project here in the Middle East. There is timelines and there is key deliverables around this. I would say this is one to keep an eye on in relation to, you know, reaching and delivery modes of how the consumer goods are transported across from country to country. So I think Hyperloop is definitely a key driver for the future mobility. So the aspect of doing all this and rolling this out is going to is always going to come back to the connectivity. It's always going to come back in some shape or form and able to help support this. And there has been advancements in the GCC over the last 12-18 months and more. I would say in the immediate term that's going to happen. From a telecoms operator perspective, we're seeing a lot of the government projects are now being accelerated to deliver some key sites for 5G. That is a key benefit to help support the transformation of the technologies. So, for example, here in the UAE, both Du and Etisalat have launched 5G in 2019 with very, very aggressive expansion plans across the network to bring it to a true 5G network, and a lot of enhancements on the 4G network as well. So there is the economic benefit, huge numbers, but you know, 11 trillion globally, and we're looking at 14 billion currently in the forecast and predictions by 2020. But again, these numbers are somewhat up for discussion based on the COVID environment today. But with the advancement of the networks, it also means a lot more interactions between the technology providers and the operators as such. And we can definitely see that there has been a big shift in the connectivity from both the automotive industry and the operators across the GCC. It is now opening up a lot more projects in the vehicle to infrastructure. We're looking at with a number of the key players in the UAE and especially in Dubai, the RTA are now looking at noise pollution based on volume of cars. So there's a lot more that they're now being able to advance with the fact that narrowband IoT, 5G, and LTE-M1, these spectrum and these networks are now available to bring on the enhancements of both from the hardware, software, and also from the different industries that are advancing the technologies. Again, on that means with more connectivity, more data, more analytics, and definitely the appetite is there for you know, key AI, both visualization of the data, and also with the car is becoming the new phone in the eyes of the operator, the data consumption, the availability of data. So the interconnectivity is definitely a major influence to help support all the technologies. As with Tesla, what we've noticed as well, they have been kind of at the forefront of the over-the-air updates to their cars, and that's something that the rest of the automotive industry, based on their technology standards and how they're going to look at their future advancements and changes in their engineering, it may accelerate that they will look at that as a key deliverable of how they're going to bring, I suppose, more of the advanced features into the car and into the transport, public transport across the buses, the trains. We're talking really all transport mediums here. So mobility as a service has become a new term in relation to our 21st century digital lifestyle. We have been moving towards that, but I think really now with COVID and with, you know, mass movement of people, transport and everything else, the data and the service offerings will help support a lot more of the technologies to come through. And sorry, just move on to this next one. So again, highlighting in the report, we've you know, there's some smart transport infrastructure in the roadmap in Dubai. You know, the RTA themselves have 34, and there's more projects have come on board since that. It's even in the last number of weeks that number has changed. But we're looking at about $871 million of projects that are currently under thought, under delivery, and also under completion. So there's, you know, they're using all the technologies out there. They're using some IoT and connected technologies to advance that. They're looking at the driver behaviors. They're looking at the automotive industry. All of this is in line with the urban planning strategy is. Smart roads projects, you know, smart parking projects. The private 5G network rollout and expansion has become a key aspect of their thought and decision making, and looking at it from an RTA perspective. And again, as I said earlier, the vehicle to vehicle, the vehicle to infrastructure, and vehicle basically to everything is a definitely, we're seeing new RFPs coming through, and we're seeing that right across the GCC. And again, in the likes of the King Saudi Arabia, there's the new smart cities will drive a lot more of this. We have the current projects at Silicon Park. Not really I'm going to skip through these based on just the time constraint. And then we've also got Smart Logistics City project, and there's a lot more detail. This is more of a shortened synopsis of these projects. But as I said, the report covers these in more detail. So really, there's top urban planning, transport and infrastructure projects right across the GCC, and it's right up to almost April 2020. This, I think, will fundamentally be the biggest game changer in these projects over the next 3, 4, 5 months of the reassessment of maybe based on sustainability, and also on clean energy and everything else based on the data that across the globe we're now beginning to see. So we take it based on each of the GCC countries, and we have a little bit more of a drill into the projects that are running. So in the UAE, there has been and there is quite a number of, you know, key projects from an infrastructure, transport, and to help support mobility of the future. We have the Dubai Metro expansion for the Expo 2020, and again, this is online to be delivered. Again, the dates and the key milestones were being met for this. So fundamentally, this will be delivered in 2020. The airports as well, the expansion plans, which will help support again a lot of the autonomous transport systems that in the future of maybe on the cargo and delivery and ground staff. These are all helping support a lot of the mobility improvements. Again, the road and upgrade improvements are very, very visible, especially in Abu Dhabi in relation to the new road systems. And also, again, driver behavior and monitoring, all key elements of the investment and the projects. The National Rail project, to name another. And then we've also got the ports, which is another key area where we look at the transport and in and out of, say, the country. Sorry about that, just skipping on. And then, so we looked at, from a Dubai perspective, we had basically flagged what's the key players across the UAE are, and in the Dubai area, what we're looking at is the RTA. We look at CERA, we look at the regulator, we looked at also DEWA is a key player in this in relation to its infrastructure and helping support a lot of the interconnectivity of the future. And again, we talk about 5G and private networks, they're a key player in this. The Department of Transport also. and with the automotive industry included in there, and Emirates Transport, you know, for public transport, school systems and the likes, these are helping pioneer and help their ambassadors, and they help drive a lot of the technology changes. Dubai Police is, again, from a UAE perspective, is an incubation hub of technology. They really are at the front end of testing a lot of the mobility and future transport technologies. And we see that just alone this week, from a telco perspective, some of the new advancements in their driver monitoring systems and also in their radar projects that they've rolled out. We move to Saudi Arabia. Again, there's a lot of, you will see core infrastructure across the railway network, across the metro. Again, the mediums of coming in and out of the country, the airports, North-South Railway, Land Bridge, to name another one, and then there's the King Abdullah Port expansion, all very relevant to mobility and also transport of the future. Again, at the very top, we can see who we've recognized as key players, and again, there's more expansion on these key players as we change and move with new projects coming online. In Oman, very active. There's 120 billion worth of project opportunities in Oman, and again, we see right across core infrastructure. We see across the railway network, the roads network, we see all of this to help support any of the new transport technologies, any of the new transport of the future. And very visible across Kuwait. A lot has been spent in Kuwait, a lot is potentially and is being spent in Bahrain. And again, we're seeing, the ability to spend on these projects and keep these in kind of the urban smart cities of the future is kind of a storybook about how the GCC has been developing. I move on to some of the final slides here from the report, and I think when speaking to Alan on this, it was very important we kind of have a look at the current situation. And I've also, with Enterprise Ireland, there's the Irish Opportunity and Mobility, and from a lot of the seminars and conferences and everything else, it's a hive of technology, and it's really inspirational to see how Irish companies are coming to the front in relation to software and development, hardware development, and also a lot of the digital transformation and the mobility solutions. But the coronavirus has really, we've learned a lot of things. We've learned a lot of things in the last month. We kind of see that transportation systems must adapt quickly, and we need to digitally transform, and connectivity is really, it has to be a way forward on this. It is highlighting that there is increased electric vehicle and autonomous focus now. There's location-based monitoring, again, based on the COVID-19, time-based travel times, again, based on the COVID-19 and maybe workflows of the future. And again, how we move to and from work. The electric vehicle efficiencies, again, this where there may have been some roadblocks and there may have been a delay in the decision thinking around, electric vehicles. I think it will get the airtime now. I think it will get the proper focus that it should have from a global perspective. The pay-per-use transport models, again, ride sharing and everything else, and being time of day travel. Again, we're seeing that here across the GCC, and the intelligent traffic management systems, where we definitely, the spend, the budgets, the investment is there to gather that data. So we also have seen very, very different transport models appear with, how we're reacting to the COVID-19 and how we're reacting to the crisis that we're seeing buses being used for, in a city of distress. We've seen e-bikes being used for fast food deliveries. We're seeing scooters being used by our frontline healthcare people to get to hospitals as part of the isolation method. So it really is a game changer. There's a whole different mindset, and what the autonomous vehicles, it's still under development. It's still something that is a moving technology, but the trends are showing that China in the last few months, from the manufacturing side, are moving. It's taking shape. They're moving on with this, and the EVs will definitely benefit on this based on the carbon data that we're beginning to see on the smart cities, and then across all urban living, that we can now see proper data, which is bringing the end of oil. It's been dismantled. So on that basis, kind of the final note I'll say on this is, it is the great transformation probably that we needed to help bring mobility of the future in line. So I'm going to pass this back to Alan, and hopefully if there's any questions, as I say, please be delighted to give more data on this.
Keith, thank you very much. I think that was a good synopsis of a very valuable and insightful report. Again, just to mention, anybody that would like a copy of Keith's report, please send myself an email. My contact details will be on the last slide when we finish up today. But it's a fantastic piece of work, and I think, again, with mobility, it's a highly fragmented industry. You've got the government, you've various agencies, the municipalities, you've got the network operators, you've got the automotive industry, and now coupled with all of that, you've got the kind of software tech companies coming on with new and emerging solutions. So collaboration is obviously going to be highly critical over the coming months and years in order to kind of make these smart city initiatives a success. So thanks, Keith. And next we have Seham, who is the General Manager for Digital and Connected Cars for Group Renault across the Middle East. Seham is going to take us through some of the digital and connectivity initiatives which Renault are currently running. And Seham, I'll throw it over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen? Yeah. So it's Seham. So I work with Renault for 8 years and currently leading the launch of connected services in the region. And today we will share with you how we see connected cars impacting and transforming the mobility landscape with more focus on the consumer side. But first, let's remind ourselves with the changing market that we live in, as we are in the digital and mobile first region with the highest connectivity rate in the world, and dealing with smart and young population with more than 60% less than or younger than 30 years old. We are surrounded by many devices at different levels with a high adoption to technology. Our homes are filled with different devices, smartphones, desktop, tablets, smart TVs, gaming, whatever. So, and also as a result of the Industry 4.0 revolution, many sectors beyond automotive and transport being disrupted, and the automotive and the transport and wider mobility market is undergoing a transformation, social, technology, and economic shift. And it's changing a lot the way that consumers are having their relationship with their cars. And if we think about it, which is changing actually the relationship, and having the car is not anymore having a way of transportation, but how many of you agree that today car is reflecting the personality and attitude of the driver, or even sometimes reflecting the social status? And the car of tomorrow will tell us who I am and what I want, or even how I feel today, and start to react based on my behavior, the driving behavior, or even based on my agenda or whatever. And that will be allowing us to choose between driving and being driven. And that's actually the next revolution. And that's what we are actually working for. And here we see the transformation from being in an industry, let's say automotive or transportation industry, to enter a new ecosystem, mobility ecosystem, where actually it's changing the game from selling a car only or a service to providing a full platform. And that's also how we need to adapt ourselves with the digital disruption, first of all, and also working side by side with the competition and also the new entrants in this region or in this ecosystem. Of course, we are not only facing the impact of the emerging technologies on the customer's behavior, but also other major concerns. And the most important one is the environmental one, which indeed one of the top priorities with all the smart cities agenda to solve many known problems such as the congestion, climate change, and also working towards having a clear smart mobility vision. And finally, which also helping here to highlight the key contributors for that strategy or that vision, which is EV, connected cars, and finally having or providing mobility as a service. So today I will focus more on the connected services side. And based on our latest research that we have done with Ipsos to understand the consumer's expectation better, we launched a deep dive and research in it was actually into two phases. One is an online community during 7 days, answering them many questions, and also 6 focus groups based in Dubai. And those questions were basically understanding their expectation and adoption for the technology, and also the expectation of the future connected services that they are expecting in the car, and even the way that they think that they will be moving or even using or thinking the mobility will be. So I will highlight quickly some of those points in that research. So first of all, digital, it's a basic thing that they need on a daily basis. It helps them to have a more effective day, more effective lifestyle in the busy city. And we all agree that technology, if technology is eliminated, life will be turned out to be slow, boring, and even impossible to survive. And we can see that during the situation, how digital was really making our life easier and helped us to survive. They also anticipated further technological innovations and high potential for more effortless lifestyle for the upcoming years, such as artificial intelligence, having a kind of a virtual assistant, also taking benefit of all the autonomous technology capabilities, or having the possible assistance like the basic one that we see today, for example, the self-parking assistant tools, or even imagining that how it can even help to have an easier transportation experience. And finally, advanced technology for them, it's a major criteria when they will be choosing their future personal car. And even one of the important key point that we took or we considered based on this research, that remote control smartphone application is the new standard offering for most known car brands. And actually having a virtual driving assistant that can interact based on the driving behavior, that would be the cherry on the top in the cake. And to share with you how we responded to all this expectation as Renault. But before that, maybe to conclude this research, we were tackling 3 points. One is the consumer's expectation from the car. Of course, for them, security is a major concern. They still want their car to be as a cocoon, having the highest level of security, where actually no possibility of hacking of their personal data, location, whatever. And at the same time, they are expecting their car to be a connector, connecting them with the environment, with the infrastructure, enabling or even promoting or helping to achieve, let's say, the drive safety, and also having easier driving journeys. And last one is having a car as a personal butler. So that's the summary of the conclusion. Finally, I'll share with you our experience on how we are driving the transformation from in the Middle East. So we started back to 2013 by providing the basic online services in the region, and we were the first automotive brand to introduce online services through a mobile app. We are also the first to introduce electric cars in UAE since 2014. We work on offering the best driving experience to all our customers, not only on the top levels of the cars, but also in the basic levels of the versions of our cars with offering the basic connectivity experience. And also, we are helping our customers on launching their car sharing projects, which is of course contributing to having a better mobility and solving many issues. We are also working this year in 2020 to launch connected cars, and by end of the year, eCall, responding to the new regulations. Also, Renault being an official sponsor for the French Pavilion, we are working and bringing our iconic Renault Easy Go as an innovative and autonomous car sharing solution. And finally, we are planning by 2022 to innovate more and more into the big data and providing the best-in-class driving experience. And our ambition is to achieve 100% connectivity by end of 2022. And to focus a little bit on the EV side, so Renault has been the leader in electric car sharing in Europe with more than 7,800 electric cars with many different vehicles or versions. And Renault is not only providing cars, but supporting our customers to launch their car sharing projects by proposing the best adapted vehicles, helping them to run the best business models, and finally ensure a post-launch support. And here are some examples of our car sharing fleet over the Europe, and we started to do also the same here in the region. And the latest launch for the car sharing was actually last month in Paris, where Renault was working with Zeti to launch Zeti car sharing in Paris with additional 500 Zoe. However, with the current situation, the official launch has been postponed, and actually those vehicles has been lent, or they are at the disposal of the healthcare personnel everywhere in France as one of the company's initiatives to help tackling the COVID-19 crisis. So as we have a limited time, I try to cover the maximum from my presentation, and I'm open for any question if you have, please. And now I hand over to Alan.
Thanks a million, Seham, for that whistle-stop tour of all the great and very interesting initiatives that Renault are running, and I'm sure I can see there's a few questions already coming through, some of which we can try and answer. So thank you very much for that great presentation. It's very interesting, I find, to see that essentially cars are becoming the new mobile phones, or it's nearly even mobile data centers themselves in the amount of data that they will have to consume and also relay, and especially if we're getting into the territory around autonomous vehicles and the vehicles being able to understand the external surroundings, the environment, and of course Ireland, it would be no easy place to trial these type of technologies, but there's a huge amount of investment coming from Ireland. Only recently the Irish government has put a large multi-million euro investment into creating a future mobility campus, along with some key industry partners such as Jaguar Land Rover, and we're going to use this as a test bed to trial new technologies and keep developing cutting-edge solutions for the automotive and smart transportation industries. So essentially, we need to kind of just think about what's next. How we use public transport and shared mobility services will now change because of the situation that we find ourselves in. Health and safety concerns, coupled with the increased adoption of remote working, may well shift the thinking around smart mobility solutions. It's estimated that by 2050, 68% of the global population is forecast to live within cities. So you can see new challenges and opportunities are going to emerge as a result of this pandemic. Right now, it's up to companies to weather this storm, to stabilize, and to start planning for a new world. In terms of what we're planning on doing next, between Enterprise Ireland and the Clean Energy Business Council, we hope to run a series of discussion-based webinars focused around mobility, some key topics, some of which I've mentioned down at the bottom of the screen. You know, there's an increased need now for disease tracking solutions, autonomous delivery. There's an Irish startup that was only trialing autonomous delivery by drone solutions for food within universities in Ireland. In the last week, they've been used to deliver essential medical supplies to remote parts of Ireland. So we will most likely see an increase in similar solutions moving forward. And again, anything around kind of geolocation, thermal-based technology is also going to be very important. So maybe just before we finish up, I know we've got a couple of minutes left on the clock. I might just open it back up to our presenters again. One question that I had or that came through was for Ahmed, and it was a question asking, how does a person or a company become a member of the Future Mobility Club?
Sure, thanks, Alan. So FMC membership is actually open for companies and for individuals. It's open for both, and it's open for anyone who is interested to work in the future mobility industry. Either it's connectivity, either it's the case, connectivity, autonomous, shared, and electric. So you can just, it's a membership based, as I mentioned. If you have membership scheme, you can just email me at the email, it was on the slides. And I'll be happy to send you over the details and the form and how to join, etc.
Okay, thanks, Ahmed. Keith, one that popped up for yourself was around how COVID-19 is going to affect the plans of governments and network operators. Obviously, across the GCC, network operators are trying to modernize their infrastructure to be able to handle 5G connectivity, narrowband IoT, LTE-M networks. Do you think this will be an accelerant, if you wish, for kind of an increased rollout?
Definitely, Alan. I can talk from even an hour ago of being on a government call for projects that have been gone through procurement and have gone through regulatory and all these things that basically would have held projects up for months. We're seeing them being accelerated almost within a couple of days here at the minute. We're seeing the network itself is it's uptime for both operators here in the UAE. It's advancements also of, you know, in the data center, you know, capacity, everything for the connectivity. I do see that, you know, the ability of the network to change has been there. The things that were maybe holding it back are not as extreme as what they seem to have been. As we're all talking on VoIP over the last 2 weeks, we can see that the networks are responding, the governments are responding, I suppose the policymakers are responding, which I think is all a benefit to changing and transforming what needs to happen.
Okay, thanks, Keith. There was one more question that might be interesting for listeners. It came from Alan Freeman. Do you think the low oil price presently will have a major impact on the adoption of electric vehicles? And maybe Ahmed, Seham might have something to say on this one as well.
Sure. So I think so, yes, but I think that the situation of the oil price will change soon. I think it's not a permanent situation. So we have the OPEC meeting happening today. I think it's happening right now. I think so. We'll see what comes out of this meeting. But generally speaking, I think the region for the number of electric vehicles in the region is increasing very fast, and the government is taking very good initiatives in terms of the incentives, so away of even from the oil prices. So the governments in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, I think Jordan, Egypt, so they have very good incentives, and I think the people also, the awareness is increasing. So I think we'll see companies also are bringing the EV models. So I think within the next few months we'll see a very good increase in the number of vehicle EV adoptions in the region. especially the UAE.
Okay, thanks, Ahmed. Seham, there was one question that popped up based around your presentation. Obviously, anybody here involved in the industry might know that e-call services within new cars sold in the UAE from 2021, they will have to be pre-installed by law. What kind of an effect will that have on the rest of the market, say for older models or for older cars that are in the UAE that don't have the e-call solution already installed?
Well, great question. So with regards to the e-call, and as per the UAE regulations, it's required for all the new model types from 2020. So clearly, or basically, there is no impact on the old models. So there will be no impact at all. However, it's a good point also to mention or to highlight that Renault is working not only on launching the built-in connected services capabilities, but we are also working from next year to have a kind of an option or connected services and as an after-sales solution that can we offer with an attractive package to our old customers.
Okay, thanks, Seham. Maybe one last question, Keith, if you're still there before we head off.
Sure.
Just around what's happening right now, COVID-19, obviously that's coupled with the collapse in the oil price. I think the latest price is down to around $30 a barrel. How do you think this is going to affect the kind of ambitious, lofty milestones that governments across the GCC have for these major transport projects?
I think, Alan, there will be a lot more insight, and the governments will want to see more data. Currently, if we were to put every car back on the road, if we were to put what's there, what the infrastructure is there today, it will handle what we currently have. There will be changes that will reflect based on they will need to prepare. They will need to have some contingency planning ahead. The current transport medium we have today, the cars, they have a lot of embedded functionality already, but I think there may be new asks from the industry to maybe open up, and this is why I said the regulatory piece will be a key play in this. Is, you know, e-call is the first generation of, in the UAE and the wider GCC, of what I would call the smart car. The second generation will be the telematics and the infotainment system, which it's almost, from the regulatory perspective here in the UAE, is taken one step at a time. I think that fundamentally will change now, because governments and national emergency plans and the health the health monitoring and everything else based on COVID will help, you know, change existing technologies in the car and also open up fresh technologies that we need. As I say, because it's all about data and data sharing, and it's all about, you know, prevention. And I think things that we have to keep that in what we talk about here is fundamentally it's going to change. So they may also use it as a time where, you know, where they have been reliant on the, you know, to be able to fight the carbon emissions and everything else, is to accelerate the electric vehicle at this stage, to bring in the more green energy and sustainable people to the table, rather than the old conventional thinking across the globe that was holding technology up. So for me, it's a very tough and challenging time. There's lots and lots of things out there that, you know, we're all being subject to, but from an innovative technology and transformation change, I think this is definitely a benefit to bring on more advancements for clean energy and also in the transport.
Okay, brilliant. Just on that, I'd like to say to, first of all, our presenters today, thank you very much. You're bang on time as well. So I hope everybody listening in was able to gain some valuable insights. Just again, from Enterprise Ireland point of view, I'd just like to say that we have a huge breadth of companies right across the technology side, from telematics to fleet management to vehicle intelligence solutions to connectivity enablers for global car manufacturers. We have a whole host of solutions, and I'd be delighted to engage with any of our listeners offline, just to kind of give you more of an idea of the companies that we work with and that we try and support here in the market. So again, I'd just like to thank everybody for their time today listening in. If you would like a copy of Keith's report and also a copy of the presentations that were made today, please contact me at the email address on the screen, and I look forward to speaking to everybody in the near future. So thank you very much, guys, and take care.